This is a really exciting lecture because you're going to learn how to read data from files and also how to write data into files. And we already imported the built-in module that we need for that in the last lecture, and so let's now get rid of this code and start using the fs module. So we use fs.read file sync. Okay, and sync stands for synchronous. And you will start learning about synchronous and asynchronous right in the next video. Okay, so this is the synchronous version of file reading, and there's also an asynchronous version. So the read file sync function takes two arguments. The first one is the path to the file that we're reading, and then also the character encoding. So first the path to the file, and the file is in the txt folder, and it is the input one. So this text that I have here about the avocado is what we're going to read into a variable. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this emoji here right on your operating system, but if you're on Windows 8 or Windows 10, then that's probably going to work just fine. Okay, so we specify the path there, and there are multiple ways of doing that, but for now I'm going to go with the simplest one. So all I'm going to do is that it's in the /txt/input.txt. So again, we're starting at the home folder, which is basically the folder where the index.js file is located. So that's the dot in there. And then we move into the txt folder, and from there input.txt. Then here the second one, we have to define the character encoding, which is UTF-8 usually, at least if you're just using English. Okay, and if we don't specify this, we get back something called a buffer. Okay, and that's not really what we want. We really just want the text. And so calling this function here will now read the data from the file and return it to us. And so we need to save that somewhere, and we put it into a variable. So let's say text in, because it's our text input. Okay, and then let's log it to the console just to see if it works. Give it a save, and now we need to run this here again. So in the terminal, I can just use the up arrow to run the previous command. So here is node index.js again, hit return, and let's see. And indeed, here we go. So here is the content of that file. So perfect. We now know how to read stuff from files. Congratulations. Okay, but we also want to know how to write to files. So let's create some new variable here with some more text and then write that into a new file. So let's call that one text out, so for output. And basically let's just write a string where we will then include this text in. And I'm using a template string here. And at this point, I'm going to assume that you're kind of familiar with the ES6 syntax. Okay, so we already used const here, which is an ES6 way of declaring variables instead of var. And now the template string, which is another ES6 thing. So before ES6, if you wanted to add something to text in, you would have to use the plus operator. So let's say this is, and then space, and then text in. Okay, so you would have to use the plus operator, but with the template string, it's much easier. All we have to do is to use the backticks, then some text, and then into this string, you can very easily plug in the variables. So let's say this is what we know about the avocado. Then we use this syntax to input the variable. Okay, and so basically inside of these curly braces here, we can write any JavaScript that we want. So it's not just for plugging in variables straight away. We could also do like calculations or any JavaScript expression that we wanted in here. Now let's say a new line character. So that's a new line, okay? And just to show you that we can actually use JavaScript inside of these curly braces here. So this $sign and then curly braces. So date, or actually date like this, dot now. Okay, so that is our string, which has this text here and together with the text that we read before from the variable. And so now let's write that to a new file. So again, we use the fs module, and this time write file sync. Okay, and again we specify the path to the file, and we still want it in the txt folder, and we call it output.txt. Okay, and now we have to actually specify what we want to write into that file, right? And that is the text out variable. And this doesn't return anything meaningful, and so we don't save anything to any variable. All we do is to finally log something more to the console, like just informing that the file has been written. Okay, so let's test it out again. I'm going to clear the console with Command K, hit the arrow up key, enter, and maybe you saw it, we here now have this new file called output. And if I open it up, then you see this is what we know about the avocado, which is what we wrote in the index.js, and then this is the text that came before from the input file, right? Then the new line that we created, and then created on this date basically. So this is date.now, so just a time stamp in milliseconds. All right, and this is how you read and write to and from files in Node.js.